Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. Today, we have three absolutely wildly great decks for you and a whole ton of weekend mission decks. So get ready, get excited for an absolute ton of decks. But before we do, I'd like to ask you to hit that sub button. We are 11 subs from 12,000. We're doing our best to grow the channel by bringing you 7 days a week of video. We cover everything Marvel Snap. This is your one-stop shop for the best decks before the meta has time to adjust. We've had the best Arishem decks. We've got the best Anti-Arishem decks. Please hit that sub button for 7 days of content, including a podcast with some of Marvel Snap's top names. Tomorrow it will be Johnny B. Good and Docty on the podcast, which releases at 8 a.m. Next week we'll have Sizer and Spyro. So please check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it. In addition, if you're already subbed, hit that like and hit that comment button. It really does help us out. Watch as long as you can. We really appreciate the support. In addition, we do the biggest giveaways in all of Marvel Snap. At some point in this video, I'm going to ask you to, ready? I'm going to ask you to leave a very specific comment, and as long as you're subbed, that will be an entry to win a season pass. Every single video this week comes with a season pass. I'll be announcing winners in Monday's video, and then we'll kick off another 5 season passes we're giving away. That's right, we're giving away 10 here and 3 more on Twitter, so make sure you check it out. Make sure you're subbed, ring that notification bell. Each video has a specific comment, and as long as you're subbed and leave that comment, you are entered to win. Every single day carries a season pass. Our first deck is going to be Dai Cavallo. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that wrong, sorry, bud. But Dai Cavallo sent me this deck, this Arishem killer deck. I spelled it Arishem because apparently I can't type. But this deck is sick. So longtime viewers will know a thing happens where, like, I'll be playing on my phone. I don't get stats on my phone, right? I don't have whatever app would do that. I'm pretty sure almost everything is blocked on phones, so I don't have stats on the phone. But I'll be like, oh, I just won like 7 or 8 in a row with a deck. And then I'm like, crap, I better get on the computer because I need stats for this. So I did. I won 7 or 8 in a row, and then I hopped on the computer and I went 5-1, including beating multiple top 100 people. This deck is wildly good, and it should look really familiar because this is Sizer's main Loki deck, except it's 2 cards different. We're going to talk about that as we go forward. But just so you know, those 2 cards are Darkhawk and Shadow King. There is usually a Mobius in here. I added Shadow King because a lot of the meta right now is either running Angela Thena nonsense, or it's running, if it's not running Angela Thena nonsense, it's running Blob in Arishem. Well, Shadow King takes care of that. Darkhawk is here almost entirely for the Arishem matchup. It can straight up win that match, especially when combined with Shadow King and Juggernaut. So that is how this deck works. Blink can guarantee you either Loki or Darkhawk, which will win you the game. If the opponent thinks they're going to Rogue or Shang-Chi or Darkhawk, you've got Cosmo for that. You've got all the answers you could possibly need. This deck is so freaking good. Alright, you can find Sizer at twitch.tv/Sizer2654. He's currently the number 2 ranked player. He's not playing this list, but if you ask him to, I bet you he will. He's currently playing the move deck that we featured last week, but this list is so freaking good right now. If he played it, he'd guaranteed win a lot. He was tied for number 2 with this deck last season. Snowguard can be Maria Hill for this list. Blink can be Devil Dinosaur. Red Guardian can be Rogue. That's perfectly fine change. Jeff can be Mobius, Nocturne, or just Sentinel. And Loki is needed. All good? So Sizer is, again, the current rank 2 player. This deck is insanely strong. I went something like 12-1 with it so far, including beating multiple top ranked players. It will take a little bit of learning what to do with, but it is not too bad. Turn 1 is Quinjet over Snowguard. Turn 2, Cable over Jeff. Turn 3 is Coulson or Red Guardian. It's very, very rarely Cosmo or Juggernaut because those are game winners when played later. Once in a while, if I know I'm going to Loki, I'll end up Juggernauting early to try for a Clog, but usually I'd rather just have the extra one of their cards. Turn 4 is Loki, or you do a turn 3 thing. And if you don't have Loki or Darkhawk, you're totally blinking on turn 5. If you do have Loki or Darkhawk, it's one of those cards. Against Arishem, sometimes I'll Loki, but I don't feel like I have to. I can win either by Lokiing and playing their cards better. It's really nice for this deck that Arishem decks play cards like Rogue and Shang-Chi, because that means I can straight up beat them with their own cards, right? while Darkhawk is obviously just so freaking big, it wins a lane all by itself, and then I just have to figure out a way to win another. And I've got Juggernaut, Cosmo, Shadow King for that. If they think they're going to win a lane with a blob, and you have Prio because you played a 40 power Darkhawk, right? Cosmo will win the game. If you don't have Prio and you know where they're going to play that blob, Shadow King will win the game. And you can always just Juggernaut if you have Prio. Juggernaut into a Cosmo will not reveal that blob, right? It can still be moved before it reveals. That's what Juggernaut does. Or it can pop it into the Darkhawk lane, and that Darkhawk lane is usually so freaking one that it doesn't matter. This deck is insanely powerful. I strongly urge you to check it out. This is about as good as I felt about a Loki deck in the past several seasons. And mind you, Loki was #1 on the Infinite Leaderboard last season. I just think that it feeds on all the Arishem and Anti-Arishem decks. So please do check out this deck. Props to Daikavallo for putting it together, and Sizer for the original base of the deck. Hey, if you're interested in Marvel Snap tournaments, and you live in the New York area, at Brooklan, Brook LAN, there is a Marvel Snap tournament Friday, July 12th at 6 p.m. Come out, I'll be there. Super Tech Out will be there. We got cash prizes. You don't want to miss out. In addition, if you cannot make New York, but you'd like to play a league, which is 1 game a week, check out the Snap Judgments League. We have over $500 in prizes at this point. Signups are basically closing today, so please make sure that you join the Snap Judgments League. You will not want to miss out. You'll be put in a pot of 30. Winners of each pod get a season pass. You can get next season's season pass. What do I care? Winners of each pod get a season pass. And then after that, you get put into the top 8 for even more great cash prizes. So please check it out. It's free for everyone who's on the Patron at any level. So make sure you check out the Patron at patreon.com/snapjudgments. You can also join the Snap Judgments League Discord if you want some more information. Our next deck is Yo Woody MJ's deck. Yo Woody MJ is brilliant. This is actually one card off because this one has a higher win rate than Woody's. I'm not sure what to make of that at this exact moment, but Woody changed Mobius for Juggernaut. On the logic that if you've got Darkhawk and Iron Man, or Darkhawk and Mystique, right, like you should be able to win by just Juggernauting them. Turns out that's not super needed. Mobius is the highest win rate card in this deck right now. Like, the version with Mobius is the highest win rate, but this list is absolutely crushing. It is the highest win rate. Woody is currently ranked #4. You can find Woody playing decks like this at twitch.tv/YoWoodyMJ. KM Best is currently playing a version of this too. It was literally just on his stream like 10 minutes ago. For this list, Thena can be Elsa. People are going to tell you it can't be, but like with Hope, it totally can be. Thena is also kind of hard to use in this list. I'm not 1000% sold on her. Hope, Ravonna, Darkhawk, Mockingbird, and Kitty are all absolutely needed. Unfortunately, I know that makes this deck expensive, but hopefully you bought the seat. Like, okay, so if you've been playing long enough, Kitty is Series 4 and they gave it to us for free. Ravonna is Series 4 and was the most important card of the meta. Hope was a season pass, and Darkhawk is well over a year old. So Mockingbird is the only card that you really like need, that like you shouldn't have if you've been playing for a long time, and making sure you get the important cards. If you don't have Mockingbird, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. It's Mockingbird's, in my opinion, the best deck in Marvel Snap right now. Sorry, the best card in Marvel Snap right now. Mobius can be Juggernaut for Woody. I'm curious about trying Sarah in that spot, because if I've got Sarah in that spot, I can go Iron Man and Mystique just all by themselves to end the game, or Darkhawk and Mystique all by themselves to end the game without worrying about Ravonna, and that seems extremely powerful. The meta is not a lot of Mobius, which is the other reason that Loki deck we just looked at is so powerful. Sage can be Wolfsbane. All right, so this is the highest win rate in High Infinite. You can check on Untapped at, well, assuming you're subscribed, for top 10% Infinite, and I always like to pay attention to what the best deck is in top 10% Infinite. It is 61% in 320 games, and we're talking about playing all like top 100 players, which is just insane. That's a great win rate for anything that high. Generally speaking, most High Infinite players climb at about 57% win rate. Getting 4 or 5% higher than that is humongous. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but I promise it is. Turn 1, Kitty. Turn 2, Ravonna is better than Thena, which is more or less equal to Angela. Again, Thena is hard to use here, which is better than Mysterio. Turn 3, Hope or 2+1, and sometimes you'll drop a Mobius if you keep Mobius in the list. Turn 4 is you would like to play cards on Hope. If you got out that Mysterio, you drop Mockingbird here, plus another card. Turn 5 is almost always either Darkhawk or Iron Man. Sometimes you'll get Darkhawk out on turn 4. Iron Man out on turn 4 with Ravonna. That's perfectly fine. If you have Kitty and Thena, I'd generally rather go Iron Man and Kitty to get the Thena trigger, but it's fine. And then you want to copy, be careful to make sure that you can. You want to copy Darkhawk or Iron Man with Mystique, and then you drop Sage as well. And if not, you can drop Juggernaut. Either way, like double Iron Man at this point is so powerful. There's very, very few answers in the meta for this. A thing I like to do is I like to try and stick these cards. One of the benefits of Mobius, let's just actually look at this. One of the benefits of Mobius is I like to stick my Iron Man / Darkhawk cards in lanes with Mobius and Ravonna, so if my opponent tries to rogue me, they're taking the 50-50 of just dying right on the spot. It is a great way to steal some extra cubes. Cool. All right, weekend mission decks. We got 1 Gilgamesh decks, 4 Arishem decks. If there's a third card that we need to make a deck for that we didn't have it, I'll do a short on it because I should have time to do a short today. So I will do a short on that if there is an extra card where that is a required thing. So let's talk Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is a 5/9 on reveal, +1 power for each of your other cards in play with increased power. All right. What I want you to do to win a season pass before we talk about Gilgamesh, everybody ready? Is I want you to rank the cards this season. We had Gilgamesh, Thena, Makari, Gilgamesh, Thena, Makari, sersi, Arishem. Rank them. Rank those 5 cards best to worst. Because I'm not sure where Gilgamesh ranks. He was meta for like 5 days. And then the Thena decks with Iron Man ended up taking him out. Like after the Professor X Cannibal thing limited him before then. He's a powerful card, but I think the best Zoo versions probably don't run him. They run Eliath instead. So I'm not sure what to make of him. Yeah, I don't... Oh, and Fastos. I forgot Fastos. So I guess there's 6 cards, excuse me. But I think Gilgamesh is good. I think Gilgamesh is worth buying just because you get all those other resources. And I think you'll be happy to have Gilgamesh in your collection at some point. There are a bunch of cards coming out that do strength pump stuff that Gilgamesh is probably good with. And you don't need to get him to a 27 to be good. If he's a 14 to 17, you're pretty happy. I don't know what to make of him. Honest to God, I don't know what to make of him. I think he's an okay card. I think he's a good card, just not a great one. This is, in my opinion, the only Gilgamesh list that you can play right now. This is based off the original Safety Blade list that was created immediately after the change to Professor X and Cannibal, and this is now the only Gilgamesh list with a reasonable play rate and a high win rate since Arishem. Cool. The reason this is so good is it's got Shadow King and Rogue. Shadow King and Rogue are absolutely stellar against Gilgamesh. Shadow King in particular is a game winner. You can conceivably just cut Kyera. We've covered this list or versions of this list like 5 times. Literally just look through old videos. You can type into the search bar the word zoo and find plenty of those. But this is a perfectly powerful deck that can compete with various Gilgamesh nonsense because it has Shadow King and Rogue. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Rogue is really good right now. Shadow King is amazing right now, and I'm not seeing Shadow King in a lot of people's decks, and I don't know why. Cool. I'm adding Shadow King to everything that makes any sense to. So please try this list if you are going to play Gilgamesh, and hey, we're going to have to get through some Gilgamesh weekend missions, so this is a good way to do so. Oh, also, if I'm cutting Kyera, I'm cutting Kyera, and I know this seems counterintuitive for Eliath, because if I can tell where they're going to play a Darkhawk, a Blob or whatever, and I can get priority, because this list should be really good at priority, then Eliath is insane. Cool. Alright, Arishem is the card of the meta. My advice is get the card. This is the most like, oh, I bought a card, I get a deck card since High Evolutionary. I guess Loki has some competition there, but I'm comparing it to High Evolutionary and Loki. That means you should get it. This is one of the most important cards in the game. We'll talk more about that later, but if someone missed it somehow, if you haven't been playing Marvel Snap, it's a 7/7 at the start of the game, +1 max energy, and shuffle 12 random cards into your deck. So you get 12 extra cards and +1 energy. Cool. All game. He's amazing. He's like 70% of the games right now in Marvel Snap. No card is as played. You're going to want this card. Even if you don't want it now while everyone on Earth is playing it, it's extremely counterable and farmable, but it's great. Go get it. Our first deck, this is basically just a Loki deck with Arishem. We're going to do a full review, again, of one of the Arishem decks, so don't have any fear about that. But this is a Loki deck that Safety basically just said, okay, so what if I took my Loki deck and added Arishem, Blob, and sort of Phastos, because everything else here is just a straight up Loki card, right? Turns out that's great. Loki is amazing. Giving Loki +1 energy is amazing. Having all these extra cards is amazing. That's it. It's straight up like Rockstar City with this deck. You should totally be willing to play this version. This is the version that KM Best is promoting, so this version has been everywhere. I'm going to be honest with you. I think KM is generally brilliant. I don't really like this list, but because this list is so popular, I felt like I should show it. The idea of this list is that you can, in mirrors, you can Mystique, Darkhawk, or Blob and just have an absolute ton of power. That's a perfectly fine way. You also still have Shang and Rogue for the same thing. You can get like 3 different blobs. There's very little reason you can run Absorbing Man for the same basic reason here, but this is the idea of the list. Leech helps protect you. Legion gives you occasional scams. Magneto gives you Clog, etc. So this is a very powerful version of the list. The win rate on this is only like 51-52%. All across, whether you be just looking at High Infinite or everything. This is not my favorite version of the list. It feels a little too all in on the big guy stuff. This isn't where I want to be with the list, but if you just like, kind of big dumb idiots, this one is for you. Next up, we have this list is super fun. It's from someone named Antonio Tarquini. They tagged me on Twitter as an Arativ, Mr. Negative Arishem list. Yup. This list is an absolute blast to play. It occasionally does absolutely nothing, right? Occasionally, Null is a completely dead card, etc., etc. But enough of the time, this list is completely stellar that I think that it's completely worth it. I personally cut Psylocke from this list for first Shang-Chi, and then Shang was like a little awkward in terms of time to use. And then I changed Shang for... the hell did I change Shang for? A 4-drop of some kind. I don't know. Something like Absorbing Man to copy Sage or Ironheart. I'm pretty sure it was Absorbing Man. But yeah, this list is extremely strong and very, very cool. The card that should probably be is Venom, so you can eat some stuff and make sure you can get your Null Zola thing going. But Null Zola is super huge. Blob is super huge. You can get so big with this list by going Blob Mystique or Blob Zola that you can actually even beat the Darkhawk sometimes. Again, if this list doesn't do nothing, it's amazing. I played this in Gold Conquest. I won 2 games and lost the 3rd when I stayed in on an 8-cuber that I definitely shouldn't have, and I got shonged in my face. But like, this is a ton of power and very cool. Like, huge props to Antonio Tarquini for this very cool and very different Arishem take. And we're finally going to talk about the Bynx Arishem that many of you, but not all of you, were testing out different thumbnails, saw in your thumbnail today. This is, in my personal opinion, right now, the best Arishem list. Got it? I think the one we talked about from JD McDonald Ho yesterday will be the best list once everything's not a mirror, but that's not the world we live in. We live in the world where we are, and I think this is where you want to be. This list does have Rogue and Shang-Chi, which can be a downside for lists, right? Because if you get Loki, then they have the answers that you put into your deck. However, there's just so much to like here. Nocturne and Legion are absolutely stellar in concert. If you Nocturne on 2, say a location you don't want, and you can change it, and then like you drop a Legion on that new location, it just gives you another shot at like rolling them with locations. White Widow is a free win in certain locations. Like, you're just trying to take advantage of all the small advantages for this list. This list is stellar. And you know what I know about this list? This list is 1 card off what Lambie ended up with. Bynx did not. I watched the stream where he ended up getting to this list. Bynx did not look at Lambie's list, or at least seemingly didn't. Bynx started out with his own list and slowly changed cards until he ended up 1 card off of Lambie's list, that being either Cable or Valentina versus Nocturne. So, like, Lambie and Bynx both came up with the same list independently. This is where I want to be as far as this deck goes, and in my opinion, this is, I think, the very best Arishem list there is right now. You can find Bynx at youtube.com/@BynxPlays. White Widow can be Cable or Mordo. Nocturne can be the same, but could also be Nick Fury or Mystique. Nick Fury is the 1 card not in this list that I think might end up being like really, really great here. There's some arguments for Mystique being in the list. Again, the decks are so big, I don't love running combinations. Blob and Loki are needed. I think like basically, if you have Arishem, those are the cards you really want to save up for, along with Mockingbird. Darkhawk, Legion, and Mockingbird can be Vision, Leech, and Nick Fury. I know you feel like you're at a disadvantage without Darkhawk. If you didn't have Darkhawk, that might be a reason to run Enchantress as well. But like, Darkhawk's really only good for the mirrors, and it depends where you are, how many mirrors you see. Cool. Leech can handle opposing blobs, so that is a card that makes a lot of sense. Again, Nick Fury can just give you an extra blob, which is insane. I've lost quite a couple games now to like Nick Fury coming out at an awkward time and giving them an extra blob that I didn't actually prepare for. And Vision is very powerful. Vision that comes out on 4 is extremely strong. However, Legion gives you free wins. Mockingbird often costs like 2, and Darkhawk is a 530. So, they're hard cards to replace. So, turn by turns are weird for this deck, but this is a 67% win rate deck at rank 230, which is, again, absolutely humongous. We're in the 200s. By the way, I'm in the 500s again. I'm not climbing this season, but I just keep winning lately. So, this is a 67% win rate at rank 230. Turn 1, you Quinjet over White Widow. Turn 2, I would still Quinjet over anything else, usually. Over Coulson, over Nocturne. Coulson is really good to get out because it gives you options, and options are good. Turn 3, Loki, if your hand is mid, or you can play it too. Sometimes you have just an amazing curve and really important and great cards, and you don't want a Loki. But most of the time, with this deck, I would like to Loki. I think Loki's really, really great. And a lot of people are just like, Loki's an okay backup plan. If I have Loki in my opening hand, unless it's drawing me cards, I'm fairly often to just sort of hold Loki on 3. People forgot how insanely, stupidly strong Loki on 3 is in a meta that doesn't have Mobius. So once I Loki on 3, I can basically fill every spot and still play a bunch of power cards. It's glorious. Turn 4, Loki is still an option, no longer as demanded. Mockingbird is great, especially if you can play it with another card, or you can drop Legion if you think a location will really benefit you. A thing I've found a lot of fun doing is I will happily, against Darkhawk decks, because Darkhawk decks all over the place, Legion the no ongoing location, and just happily be like, oh, well, no Darkhawk, enjoy yourselves. Or I can get ahead early because they're busy playing like rocks and little cards, and I can get the Kiln on turn 4. Like, I've played decent power, and I can just drop, like, I'm dropping a 7 on the Kiln, and now I'm winning all 3 locations. The board is locked. Have a great day. Stuff like that is insanely strong. Turn 5 is Blobber Darkhawk, and then turn 6 is Blobber Darkhawk, or Shang, or Rogue, or you can just, be perfectly fine. This is, again, exactly where I want to be with Arishem right now. It's not too all in, but it does a lot of the big stuff. I think that you want to try and balance being really all in on the anti-Arishem tech and being good against the rest of the meta, and I think this deck does that basically perfectly. Its high win rate shows that it's an effective way to do it. I think, again, the all-in version is a cam version that we just looked at, and I think the version that once the meta normalizes out to just being Arishem just being a deck, a high scene deck, but just a deck, I think it will be the JD McDonald version from yesterday. All good? Great. If you'd like to see games from all these decks, check out the stream team. Tonight is Friday, so the homie, the Pirate King Tuccrr, will be streaming at 9:10. Check him out to watch him play these decks, while Saturday will be the great FaThorNewman first thing in the morning, playing all the decks from the week. Make sure you don't miss out on those. If you do happen to miss out on those Saturday morning, Tuccrr will have a video. Sunday morning, Newman will have a video, so you can get it that way. Questions of the day, and this is going to be a fairly long one. Sorry, get ready. Questions of the day. Models asked what would make us move away from the Arishem meta. I think just time. People are going to get sick of it. So the question is, does Second Dinner have to do something? I'm not sure what knobs they put on the card Arishem to give them much to do. They can add an extra 4 cards to your deck, but that seems miserable. So I think ultimately we're just going to have to deal with Arishem being a card, and it's going to be everywhere. As I've climbed higher, I'm seeing less and less Arishem. I'm ranked 570 right now, something along those lines. And as I've climbed, I'm seeing less and less I'm assuming that the Arishem counters trickle along and Arishem becomes just a popular deck and not the deck you see every other game. I assume Arishem will end up about as popular as Thanos was when Thanos was the thing, which means it's like 1 in every 2 to 3 games. I'm hoping we get to 1 in every 3 with time. I think time is the only real solution here, though. This card is here to stay. Calvin Jim wants to use base art in their Arishem deck in order to make people have to click on every card to figure out if it's an Arishem generated card or a base card. I think that's a great and hilarious idea, and I strongly encourage people to do it. It's a nice little competitive advantage, especially on your phone. On the app, if you play on Steam and you have the app, it'll tell you where cards are from without you having to click them. So it's not great against Steam players, but it is completely hilarious and certainly effective against phone players unless they want to click on every card. So I am all for it, and I strongly urge that to be a thing people do. Someone is wondering about non-infinite players on podcasts. And like, buckle up, I have a reasonably long answer here. So I wish I could find the person. So they're wondering basically, should podcasts generally have non-infinite players? Should you be inviting people that don't get to infinite on different types of players with different voices? And those of you who listen to Snap Judgment's podcast might know my friend Roy, who is my co-host on that podcast, has gotten to infinite once and generally doesn't bother. He's capable, just doesn't care enough to. He plays the game much more for fun and offers that balance. And I think that that's important. And it makes a lot of sense for our podcast because our audience is complicated. Our audience runs the gamut. We have 2 primary audiences to the best of my knowledge. We have the people that are trying to get to infinite, and we have the top of the infinite leaderboard. I know this because I speak to a lot of my audience. You might not know this, but I'm terrible at parasocial relationships. I don't reply immediately to every message, but I do my best, like, especially if you're messaging on Discord or Twitter, to reply to every single person. I will immediately, like, I will forget because I'm trying to talk to a million people at once, but, like, I will talk to almost everyone as much as I possibly can, until I burn out. That might burn me out, so, like, be careful with it. But, like, I know that a lot of the players I talk to are struggling to hit infinite. A lot of my Patreons are struggling to hit infinite. And I know, because they tell me, that the top of the infinite leaderboard watches my videos. So we're trying to balance, like, in a very complex way, 2 distinct audiences, right? So how do we balance those 2 distinct audiences? Well, the podcast is one wonderful way to do that, right? In the podcast, we've got myself, who's not the highest infinite player, but high enough, and who knows all the top players and all the top decks. We've got Roy, who's sort of on the outskirts of the community, plays enough to know what's casual, fun, what people are doing in the game. And I think that's a really great balance for us. Now, I think that's part of what makes us distinct, that we know our audience and that we can aim for that. That wouldn't make sense for, and I'm just going to use 2 other podcasts as an example, that wouldn't make sense for the Snapshot, right? The Snapshot is Cam and Brendan's thing, right? Cam and Brendan are very competitive people. Brendan is a tournament player. Cam, like, his whole content is based around competitive play, right? So their audience, it doesn't make sense for them to have non-infinite people on outside of, like, as a novelty, because that's not what they do. Like, a lot of it's just knowing your audience. Meanwhile, the Snapchat, Cozy and Alex, are infinite players, but they are aiming at that casual audience. Part of what makes their audience so large is they talk almost exclusively to the person who is trying to get infinite, to the person who is playing the game almost exclusively for fun, for a few minutes each day, right? That's 2 totally different audiences, and they both do a great job at reaching their exact audience. I don't know if they do that on purpose. I have no idea. But, like, How Can She Snap aims for the same casual audience, right? Like, this is a thing. Snap Decisions has that same casual audience as a rule. There's a balance here, right? There's a push and pull, a give and take. I know that Bootman and Bradsifer tend to aim closer to the Cam side of the audience. I think that kind of thing is really important, knowing what your audience is. I hope that Roy being on the podcast provides value. It provides a different perspective and makes it so that the players trying to reach infinite or trying to, like, climb a little bit of infinite and the top level player can both find value, because we get such a broad and wide perspective. I think that is important. If you're willing, in addition to trying to win the season pass by ranking this season's cards, give me a thought. Do you think that that provides value? Because, again, I personally do. I think it's part of the reason that our audience is so varied while so many are so narrow. All right, again, buckle up. Two Ties asks what emojis mean. Let's go through them. So I listed the main ones, and then I listed the ones I have. So Ms. Marvel means fuck you. Like, this is toxic. I don't like it. I fundamentally never Ms. Marvel anybody. It's rude, straight up rude. The Spidey point is two things. It has two meanings. It means we played the same card, and I recognize you. Oh my god, I know your name. Cool. Like, people Spidey at me at the start of games all the time. My screen name is Snap Judgment's Pod. It looks like Snap Judgment's Poo because the D looks like an O, but I can't control that. But Spidey just means, oh my god, I know you, or oh my god, we played the same card. The fist bump means good game. That's all it means to me. I like the fist bump a lot. I have a weird problem with the fist bump and Spidey lately, in that when I'm playing on my computer, and I play more on my computer over the summer than during the school year, the untapped overlay messes with my emojis and my ability to use them. When I click it, it doesn't let me hit all of them. So sometimes people fist bump me or Spidey me and I can't reply. I tend to just reply in those situations with Cosmo, because I always keep Cosmo in my favorites, because Cosmo hip is adorable. The Deadpool stab means I did something messed up or some part kind of RNG went against me. And the Thanos snap means, so you thought it was a good idea to snap me, huh? It's very stupid, because I'm not snapping because I think I'm guaranteed to win. I'm snapping because I think I'm favored. Like, I don't know. The way people use the Thanos snap tends to make me feel like they don't understand the game, to be completely honest. Ms. Minutes is, why are you taking so freaking long? We're just going through the ones I have. I don't know what the ones I don't have are. The Ms. Minutes means, again, you're taking way too long for your turn. Let's go. It's the only one I ever spam, because if you're taking, like, I hate the turn one, like I press start game and then I went to do something. Like, hurry up. You only have one or two things to choose from. Do it. Cyclops is like the Cyclops where he's like all energy beamy. To me, means like, let's go. This game is really competitive. I use it around turn like 2-3 to be like, all right, let's do it. Once the game is going well, sometimes I'll snap on it because I think it's a decent mind game. Cosmo is, I use Cosmo as a fist bump or as like an I recognize you type thing, just because I like the Cosmo, and it for whatever reason, its placement on my like little tray means I can do it basically no matter what. Iceman means, you did something scary. Like, if you play a negative on curve, I will Iceman you. If I know your name, sometimes if you point at me, I'll Iceman you back. Like, I'm playing Woody, I'm playing Husky, I'm playing whoever, right? Arishem, I don't have a good feel for yet. I feel like it's fairly similar to Ms. Marvel, but I don't know. I don't know yet. It's too new. The Captain Marvel means, I don't know, let's see what's going to happen. I tend to use it around when 50-50s are happening. You should generally not run from 50-50s. If you run from a 50-50 in Marvel Snap, you lose 100% of the time, and if you stay, half the time you win. So, like, generally speaking, you should stay in 50-50s. It's better math in terms of climbing. But I use Captain Marvel to be like 50-50s, or, what do you know? Like, RNG stuff. That's not necessarily as negative as the Deadpool stab. Red Guardian means I'm nervous. We're getting toward the end of the game. I never use it, but that's when people seem to use it. Heimdall is the same thing as Iceman, but not as good. And I think that morph is ugly and should be deleted from the game. All right. Whew. Now I can use that Red Guardian from going through all that. Fire Troll asks how I got involved in the union. So I'm the union VP of my building. Basically, the VP of the building is the equivalent union position to the principal. I'm a teacher, for anyone who's brand new here. I got involved because during COVID, I felt like I wasn't getting enough information, and I raised a fairly big stink about it. I have a fairly big mouth. I'm reasonably anti-authority. And by reasonably, I mean like entirely anti-authority. So I raised a fairly big stink. But I'm the type of person, hopefully you get this from the videos, where if I complain about something, I feel like I have to try and do something to change it, which is why, like, when I complain about something in Marvel Snap, I'm messaging it to Second Dinner, right? Like, I don't believe in just saying things to say them. So I decided to get involved with the union. The VP at the time was retiring, and it made sense to try, if I wanted to make a difference and help things, then it made a lot of sense to run for VP instead of just being a rep. So I'm VP. I'm going to be VP for, I think I do a good job. The building seems to think I do a good job. I just won an election. by a lot, for a second term. I'm gonna step down at the end of this next 2-year term, and I think I'm gonna go get an EdD, which is a form of doctorate. Honestly, largely to bump my teaching salary up, but also because I think it would be fucking hilarious to be Dr. Glazer. And I think I can manage an EdD while I do this. I'm just honest to God, like no joke, looking for the cheapest one that doesn't have a master's thesis on top of it, or a doctoral dissertation on top of it. If it has one, I'll deal with it. But I just want the cheapest one that's like I can sort of like just take a bunch of classes and finish it up, because I'm pretty good at this school thing. So yeah, that's where I am in my life. My plan is to do union 2 more years, step down, be a rep. Someone else is president, and I'll support them as I do my doctoral stuff. And then once I finish that, I can go back to being VP if it's required of me. Hopefully that made sense to everyone. And sorry for the really long questions of the day today. Just happened to get a chunk of long questions. All right. If you are interested in the Patreon, check out patreon.com/snapjudgments. I got a doctorate to pay for eventually. So any support is welcome. The Patreon, honest to God, mostly ends up going into back into the community. I support fundamentally almost every tournament, including that Brooklyn one. I'm probably supporting SnapCon if anyone ever gets back to me about it. We've got our Snap Judgments League with huge prizes, biggest prizes in the entire community on a regular basis. So if you want to check that out, please do so. All right, I'd like to say thank you to these are the patrons that support with $10. They make almost everything we do completely possible here. So like ridiculous and huge thank yous to Abigail Giesland, Mandatory Burnout, Cables, Irregardless, David G. Wingfield, Direwolf, LAB, FaThorNewman, Good Dog Gamer, This Is The Way, Inc., I Am Frostman, Jane Everett, Doomer, Rhyme Dryan, Heretixley, Koi Ray, Pyrophoros, The Goat Seeker, Deadman Falcon, Quid Pro Joe, Doc D, who does amazing new card content in Marvel Snap, Fat Nick, Doku, Ginger Prime, Ratko, Philip Brakovich, Haplo, Kenny Loggins, resident of the Danger Zone, Rob Silverman, The Bizza, Xorce V and Skippy G, Tommy Nyquist, the winner of the very first Snap Judgments League, The King of Bros, Black Dahlia, The Great Kazoo, Jessica Gamble, Ryan Wood, Pepsi Hoda, Luna Chris, Archangel 3K, Louis Antones, Mod Supreme Models, Darth Tater, Remes Etala, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, Jason B., J.D. McDonaldino, who hit top 100, congrats friend, The Fuzzy Dunlop, Spectrumix, who, Matt H., Mikey Hijinks, No Flex, Ocularis, Craig Sterry, Seamus, so far behind Seamus, so far, Jonesy, Two Ties. We just saw a question from Two Ties. The Pirate King Tuccrr, watch him tonight on the stream team. The homie Min, who I've heard not a word from. I hope he's doing well. And of course, Gunny T, where the T stands for, I hope you survive Florida, my friend. That's it. We'll see you tomorrow for another Snap Take. No, we won't. We'll see you tomorrow for the frickin' podcast, where we rank every single Datamine card with Doc T and Johnny B. Good. And then Sunday, we'll be back for another Snap Take. Peace. Where's the stop?